Le sharp, limnat, liwele.
We are live.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Good.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody joining us today. Today, I've got the pleasure of hosting a group of digital marketers to talk about the State of the Nation address, which we saw last week presented by the president, and just to give a perspective from the digital industry, and specifically here, the best of the best in digital marketing. Now, to start off, we'll do introductions with the different people. I'll start with myself, if you guys don't mind. My name is Unpacking. I'm a director at a company called Spectrum Analytics, which is a data analytics company. Basically, what Spectrum Analytics does is data analytics and digital transformation consultancy. And we're currently involved in some exciting projects, especially around digitizing some interesting things in government. Now, I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Karabo. Karabo, give us a short intro to tell us who you are.
No, thank you very much. My name is Karabo Lutsulo. I am the CEO of Vibe Digital. We are a digital marketing agency that was founded back in 2015. So we have about 5.5 years in the industry. Essentially what we do is we offer a whole array of services centered around digital marketing, from social media marketing, content creation, website design and development, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go through all and every one of the services, but just think digital, and that's something that we can do.
Great.
Mike, tell us about yourself.
Great. Okay, my name is Michael Hall. I'm Botswana born, globally influenced, and playing in the African space. I'm a marketing professional, primarily focused on social media and digital marketing, with over 8 years experience in the game. I work for a company called Pernod Ricard, being the second largest global spirits company in the world. And I'm a brand custodian of some of the top brands, being brands like Jameson, Absolute, Chivas, Ballantine's, Beefeater, or Mecca. So yeah, that's in a nutshell who I am and what I do.
Thanks, Mike. The queen of the pack, Kamo.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kamo Mujingo, and I am the CEO and digital brand strategist at Enza Digital. So what we do is we mainly focus on social media management and digital presence, particularly for small and medium enterprises. So we do a lot of content creation, photography, production, and basically social media management for our clients.
Fantastic stuff. Lesego?
Yeah, I'm Lesego, social media and digital marketing executive at FCB Wired. I do a lot of social media work more than anything else digital. I've worked with a number of brands in the financial services industry. I've worked with alcohol brands. I've worked with groceries. Yeah. FCB Wired being an advertising agency.
Fantastic. And last but not least, our host, Tony.
Dumela, my name is Tony Mautu. I am the founder and CEO of Socialite. We've been running since 2014, and we specialize in social media management solutions or digital solutions. So we do your social media, we do content creation, we do media monitoring, and we just develop technology around the social media space.
Great, thank you, and thank you. We've got a very experienced panel here. I think everybody can agree with that. Now, what we're gonna do is basically just talk about the industry, have a discussion on what has happened, what's going to be happening going forward. And it's going to be a very packed session, so we will try to get through it fairly quickly. So let's start. Basically, I think as a country, we've been hearing about digital transformation from the president since he came into to power in 2018. And transformation is such a big priority as a country. I want to ask, looking at the SONA that we looked at last week, and some of the other policies that have happened since then, what's your feeling with what's contained in the SONA that relates to the digital industry? And do you think that's sufficient? Let's start with you, Tony, as the host.
Yeah, having had a look at the SONA really does give direction in terms of the state and us showing interest in the direction of digital. With digital, there's a lot of layers that you have to put on before you can actually build the tech or be at a level where you're competing with your UKs and USs. From what I had picked up, there was more focus on enablement, there was more focus on building of strategies, and there was more focus on really trying to lay the groundwork. I've watched some of the interactions over the past year, and I have to say some of the key areas that were mentioned, like e-minerals, e-health strategies, e-learning, capacity building, for me were quite impressive because it shows that as much as we are not there yet, we are building the foundation. A lot of people expect digital to be instantaneous as the digital that we experience now. But we have to be mindful of where we are. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the high-paced development capacity that other nations have. And remember, when it comes to digital, all you have to do is spark creativity, spark the platform and encourage people to create. Some of the best creators in the world were not, they came from enabling environments. Let me just put it that way. Because I think if we had like your Mark Zuckerbergs in Botswana, they would have gone mad. They would have gone insane because the environment does not allow for that level of creativity or allow for them to explore the ideas at the level where we can see huge, significant results. So I'd say it's a very good foundation. And having just watched beyond the SONA, the activity of how the president is really trying to start. And, in digital, it's always about starting. You never stop.
Thanks. Lesego, any other perspectives on that?
I think just to add on to what Tony said, what particularly stuck out for me from the SONA was more e-commerce and e-learning initiatives. I particularly was interested in the content platform for learners that the government is proposing for completion, I think about at the end of the 2022 financial year. And I think, like Tony has said, the important thing is to start. And the government is clearly showing an interest in starting and laying the groundwork for all of the frameworks and the transformation at large.
Cool. All of the SONA and all of these other policies fit into another initiative that the president kicked off about 18 months ago, which is the National Transformation Strategy. And my belief and what I'm aware of is that it's something that will be presented and provided to the country in the next month or two. Mike, what would you love to see in that transformation strategy that would probably then make the aspirations of things like the SONA for them to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what the guys have already said, I would really like to see us accelerating the intelligent infrastructure that entails, smart frameworks such as smart cities. I mean, we've already started with the recent launch of the GABS free Wi-Fi, the rollout of the Boffinet optic fiber cables across the country. We've seen the CCTV camera, safe city surveillance, and the centralized traffic control center. But what we need to do is really accelerate some of these initiatives, because we can't have them all centralized in Gaborone and type of thing. So another thing is the promotion of sustainable employment creation with an entrepreneurial focus that is geared towards regional and global integration. Solutions to the local socio-economic problems using innovative local solutions that contribute to the sustainable growth of the economy. I mean, we've seen COVID that we are able as a country to do things. We've seen with the blocking of food, for instance, that we have producers in country who can supply the demand. So I stress local, because we really have brilliant minds across the country in the digital or tech space, and given the opportunities and resources, geez man, we'd be able to address most of these challenges and really assist government in reaching their goal of moving us to the fourth industrial revolution that the president talks about and is passionate about. Another thing, obviously, increase on spending in research and development initiatives to really attract FDI, because like I said, we've got an abundance of talent, and with increased spending, like countries in like Kenya, Rwanda, we'd be able to attract some big global tech giants like Facebook, Google, to come and set up, because ultimately, Botswana is best placed as the hub of SADC, and why not set up, these companies within Botswana to be the market leader in SADC. Another thing, just to add on, I know they touched on e-learning or e-governance, which is a really big thing. Acceleration on e-learning or introduction of a digital skills curriculum in the school system. I mean, everyone nowadays. I mean, my daughter is 6 years old and is able to navigate my phone. There's some apps that I don't even know how to navigate, but she does with so much ease. So kids need to be stimulated in order for us to grow. And obviously, from a teacher point of view, they need a lot of upskilling and really be able to or want to adapt to these changes that are happening. So yeah, that's.
Thanks, Mike. Kamo, anything else you want to see in the transformation strategy?
Just to expand on the points that Michael made, particularly on education and e-learning. I'm big on education, and I think that our younger children and our adolescents are our future, and they are responsible for the digital transformation of the nation. It may be hard to accept, but we're quite old, if I can say. Michael was saying his daughter is way more tech advanced than he is at 6 years old. So I think it's very important to equip our younger children with the skills that they need to be competitive, not only against one another within Botswana, but also against the world. Because we're seeing that the world is becoming smaller and more connected. So we need our people to be, as skilled as everybody else around the world. So one of the things that I'd like to see is, maybe movement towards an educational reform, teaching new skills, like Michael said, digital skills, and also entrepreneurial skills. I think we've seen with COVID and what has happened with the pandemic is that people need to learn how to pivot in jobs, in business, in anything that they do. They need to learn how to, think fast, fail fast, and move fast.
Great. This is a fairly, I mean, I think in Botswana, the digital industry and even digital marketing is a fairly new industry relative to like other industries or relative to the rest of the world. What kind of challenges are you guys seeing in those spaces? And then maybe also just sort of give us an idea of what it was like pre-COVID and now during COVID. What kind of things are you guys seeing? Mike?
Geez. Okay, I think first and foremost, our biggest challenge as a country is connectivity, data costs, but some pretty high data costs. I mean, just to pull out some stats, Botswana ranks 9th most expensive in mobile data prices in Africa at an average of about $14 per gig, while a country like Sudan, which is less developed, or I don't want to say poor, but has one of the cheapest data costs in Africa, at only 68 cents per gig, So connectivity is a big thing, which we're struggling with, but I think we will get right. As the rollout of optic fiber, I think we should see data prices falling. But from a digital marketing point of view, the private sector, who really should be switched on, I don't think have embraced or taken time to understand this. And I refer to my industry or digital marketing. I mean, now we live in an environment where we talk about experience, and where now more than ever, the consumers value how they experience brands from everything, especially online, and that extends to websites, both online and offline stores, as well as social media and other potential touch points, the customer along the consumer journey, basically. So in order for businesses to differentiate themselves from their competitors and play in the global arena, they really, really need to embrace technology. And from where I am embracing digital marketing as part of marketing, it's a must, because digital marketing is not a separate entity away from marketing. And I think lastly, which is another big thing, probably after connectivity, is the budget. Businesses, like I said, have not embraced digital marketing, and therefore a budget becomes a serious issue. I mean, they would rather still spend a bulk of their budget on traditional mediums, even though, product offering, or, depending, you can save 10 times the total budget by spending it online as opposed to a newspaper or billboard or whatever. And, I think solution to some of these challenges is that companies need to seriously invest in skills development to adapt to the ever-changing landscape. Because, I mean, I look at across the industry, traditional marketers haven't really evolved, and they need to evolve because the industry is constantly changing, and they need to equip themselves to be able to champion and play an active role in the transformation of their businesses. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, So experiencing a digital transformation is the epitome of the fourth industrial revolution that we preach.
Great. Karabo, what challenges have you seen with your business, and has that evolved, before COVID and after? I mean, are people now coming to you because they can't do a lot more as much as they could previously?
Yeah. No, basically what Michael has covered is basically what all of us are experiencing. Mind you, just remember, there was once a time that the government wanted to ban social media from all departments. I don't know if you remember that time. I think it was around 2015, 2014, where the government was like, we are going to put a block on the intranet, all of these departments so that you can't access them. You understand? So coming from that mindset to where we are today, we have made significant progress, but there's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of mentality, which is basically what Michael was talking about. But you know what, have we really truly embraced digital marketing as an industry that provides value for these brands? And the answer is, quite frankly, not to the level that we should be doing. And there's a lot of elements that do come into factor, like what Michael was saying is data, among other things, and so on and so forth. But yes, the government can be commended in trying to make internet now as accessible to as many people as possible, hence initiatives like the gaps-free Wi-Fi area, so on and so forth, and also internet connectivity to even some villages, which brings me to the point of digital literacy. How literate is the market in Botswana on the digital industry? It's not where it should be, but as the digital literacy of the citizens of Botswana increases, that's only when the market can start appreciating what exactly we are providing. And also we can have scenarios whereby budgets are now spent accordingly, where nothing is underpaid, nothing is undervalued, so on and so forth. So I think the most important takeaway point is digital literacy, which was an issue pre-COVID, but now post-COVID, there has been much more of an appreciation as to what exactly, as digital marketers, do we provide to the industry. And that the COVID era has really, what can I say, spearheaded the digital marketing industry, because it has obviously brought about, or rather highlighted, the weaknesses of traditional platforms that newer digital platforms don't have. So you start seeing people now saying, yo, maybe we should take this more seriously, because don't forget, my role as a digital marketer, at one point, people thought that people in the IT department of their companies can do that, because they thought digital marketing was just a posting of a Facebook status, and then you leave it as is, just to post a status. That's digital marketing to them. So we've had to really evolve and grow and make make the market understand that, listen, when I come to you and I say I'm a digital marketer, this is exactly what I mean. I'm building a relationship with your clients, with various stakeholders through digital platforms for you, so on and so forth. And also things like content generation, content planning, knowing the different platforms that are available, because it's not just Facebook, it's not just Twitter. And if you're to look at all of our introductions, all of us that we've in, most of us say we do social media marketing as a core, but digital marketing expands beyond just social media. And I think that's also a reflection of how the industry is in its infancy stage, because the market hasn't really embraced digital marketing. And so once it does, that infancy will obviously mature, where now you start integrating other platforms like email marketing, SMS, pay-per-click, in-app advertising, so on and so forth. So at this particular juncture, we can't even say we're in post-COVID, but we're during this COVID era, we are experiencing a growth, which is very welcomed, but it's not to say that it's at the level that it should be, especially considering the small population that we are at. A lot of people cry that we are a small population, but there are strengths to having small numbers. And the smaller numbers, we can really enact changes. If we really wanted to, we can really drive things much quicker than if we're in a larger population. So during this COVID era, we are experiencing growth, but there's a lot more growth that needs to happen for the industry to be truly appreciated for the value added services that we provide.
Yeah, and just to add, I think, until the private sector really embraces tech or digital, or until then, government will always, drive at a slow pace until the private sector actually takes the bull by the horn and drive this fourth industrial revolution, because the private sector is meant to be teaching government or walking side by side with government to achieve the goal for the greater good of the republic or a country, so to speak, because we constantly complain about government, but what are we doing to help government, realize their goals? We can't just sit back and chill, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good sort of segue into the next question. And there's also another question from one of the guys who's watching us, who's actually in Rwanda, so Botswana in Rwanda.
Nice.
Yeah. The basic question is, how do we grow the industry to make it sort of sustainable and without necessarily just depending on government? I think we've given quite a lot of sort of discussion points of what we'd love government to do. How do we sort of as citizens at our level, and how do we also get the corporate, how do we get the corporate sector plus the industry as well? I mean, I think we also kind of need to take some responsibility for growing our own industry. How do we get that so that we could make this a lot more sustainable? Tony, what's your experience been like?
Well, the truth is, if we don't focus on citizen growth or focus on enabling our citizens to have the skills that we require in order for them to compete on a global level, we will not catch up. One thing that I've seen a lot of multinationals do is they come with content that's already been prepared from the country of origin. So this doesn't help us in any way, because in order for us to grow an industry, we have to grow all facets of the content, we have to grow all facets of the technology, and we have to put our people through the processes, through the cracks, so that they can absorb the skill as the organization grows. So it's very important for everyone, not just government, to really go big and wild about tech. There's nothing wrong with us embracing it as much as possible and trying some of the wildest innovations out there. Because what eventually happens in the process of innovation is, if you come up with a very, very wild idea and you miss it, that miss will inspire the rest of the people around you to build solutions. So, for example, I know this is not in line with digital, but I think this will give a bit of perspective. As Botswana, had we executed the coal to liquid project, imagine the number of industries that would have been cultivated from that. It's a huge project. It's ambitious, and that's how we have to think about text-based digital. We have to think about it in a huge way. We have to be very, very ambitious, and we shouldn't shy away from saying, you know what, we're going to build this locally, and even inviting some of the best guys in the world to come and build. But another thing that needs to change is our procurement system. It really has to be overhauled, because one thing is, you put out a tender and you're going to go with the lowest bid. We all know the reality. The cheapest doesn't always mean the best quality. So if we restructure our procurement system, even from a government level, where we get the best skills globally, but conditions of proper skills transfer, not front-end skills transfer, proper skills transfer, proper organizational transfer. Meaning, if a multinational comes into the country and is doing maybe a coverage of a huge event, or they are doing a digital campaign for like a big private entity, it should be conditional that they attach and they work with and show the value that they've transferred to the locals. And that can be an incentive that can be put up against your tax deduction and all of that. But what we will be doing is we will be enabling people to have real-time experience and skills. I don't think at this point we need any more soft skills as a nation. We're a very literate nation, we're a very educated nation. But we need the hardcore skills. We need that experience of saying, if you are to put on a global webinar at the magnitude of maybe, let's say, 1 million attendants, we need experience like that hands-on. We need to see the bigger picture, and we need the bigger experience so that we are able to take the digital industry and cultivate it to the next level. And my last point to close that off is the policy has to encourage spending locally. We see it a lot in stores. We see it a lot with multinationals, the way they run their campaigns. It's run from central outside the country. You know, our policy should be so advanced that it's now prompting that any digital content that's being put out for consumption of locals, where you know you're benefiting from the local market, there should be demonstration of benefits that would be rolled out to the local people. You know, some of the ads that we see, we should see our people actually participate in that. If you're a multinational that's not local and you're benefiting from it, you know, that's how we will see the industry get cultivated. That's how we'll see it get inspired. And then just to close off, the encouragement of us having more platforms that are centered towards the creativity and expression of digital. You know, we don't host a lot of digital conferences that are skewed towards driving the industry forward. A lot of them are really focused on policy. Yes, that is important, but we now need to focus on how do we elevate the level of creativity, the level of production that goes out into it. Like Karabo said, he said, are we ready as the digital industry? And no, we are not. We're still at our infancy. So we need to collaborate and work and meet with people that are actually at that level where they're doing things that are massive. Yeah.
All right, great. Lesego, any more perspectives on what like we grow the industry and make it sustainable?
Yeah, I think to take a lean on the digital transformation agenda as an avenue for us to be able to expand the industry, I think what I expect us as the private sector to do alongside government is to really avail ourselves as we grow. Let's do more in partnership with the government and maybe a willingness from government, a more clear willingness from political leaders to prioritize digital efforts in advancing the industry, not just saying what's the private sector doing, what's the public sector doing, a more clear prioritization of collaboration even, and maybe even a willingness to change laws and practices, starting from policy level, going up to really make it clear that this is a national priority, and a sense of responsibility from everyone that's actively involved in the digital industry is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you've touched on some really interesting ones. One of them being the issue of an ecosystem, of sort of being aware of everyone that's out there, the ecosystem that's out there, and that ecosystem collectively taking responsibility to sort of move the industry forward. Even, you know, something that Karabo talked about was the undervaluing, where clients undervalue what is being done. And I think Mike also touched on that. And that's probably something that the industry itself should be taking as one of the things to educate, almost as a CSR to educate the rest of the country. So seeing as we've got all of those and all of these challenges that we're thinking about, but also all of these wonderful opportunities, I actually think our opportunities outweigh the challenges that we're currently facing.
Very true.
Karabo, where do we, how do we move forward as an industry to make sure that we do take advantage of what's the next evolution that we need as industry players to make sure that we're able to take advantage of all these wonderful opportunities?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this right here, what we're doing right now is the first step, because this is the first time I've ever been in anything together with any one of you guys, and you are other players in the digital industry. So collaboration, we always hear it, but we never practice it. That's the first thing that needs to happen in terms of the next step forward. We need to be hosting these webinars. It doesn't take a lot. We just need to set aside time to discuss some of these issues like we are doing right now. And it needs to be a constant, and a frequent thing happening. This shouldn't be happening once every year. So what we're doing is collectively sharing our knowledge on the industry and talking about discussing the problems and also discussing solutions going forward. Now, what Mr. Hohonte, or is it a lady, discussed was, how do we do it without government? The first thing is to do things collectively as a digital industry, prove as to why we need localized content over that of content created outside of the country and then try to be implemented here. Show that it actually works, the localized content. Then once we have those kind of case studies, then we're able to easily go to the government and say, listen, you need a policy that actually deals with having content created for companies be local rather than being imported. Although it is very difficult, but it's not impossible to do. And that's one of the things that will sort of strengthen the government's call to uplifting the local creative industry. I mean, in the State of the Nation, they talked about the new UPICTV, I think it's what it's called, where it's another platform for local creatives. Imagine if that kind of a mindset was extended towards every other multinational company in terms of all of the creative that happens. It can be retained in Botswana, done in Botswana, and be talking to Botswana. One of the things that we sometimes suffer is obviously that battle of having localized content. We always tell our clients that, listen, it's important to have, let's say we're a predominantly Black country. So if you want to speak to the masses, you would rather have Black models, in your artwork or in your videos and whatever content that you're creating to speak to more people. Not to say that you're excluding other nationalities, because there's other nationalities that make up the local community, but such things, it's important to take into consideration. So that kind of let's say pioneering by us is very important. We must show collectively together that this is very important to do, because that also adds to the digital literacy. If I was to go back to what I had initially said on the other question, imagine the government is doing all of this infrastructure, but is the literacy levels there? There's no point in providing someone with a car if they don't know how to drive a car. So we as Digital BW needs to be at the forefront in terms of increasing the digital literacy of the market, of individuals, even if they're not our clients, our colleagues, our friends and family, to try TikTok if you haven't used TikTok. Try such and such a technology if you haven't used that technology. So us advocating for these digital platforms to be uptook, if I'm to use that word, uptaken, would help a great deal, because they're truly embracing digital now. And once you have a market and a population that has truly embraced digital, that's when we can now start making a lot more progress. But right now, we still have individuals who are just only going to use Facebook, who are only going to use Twitter, who never opened up an account on TikTok, on Snapchat. just to say they try it, just to have a feeling of what's happening. You get what I mean? So once we have people who are curious as to what other digital platforms are there, what other features are there, that's when we can really flex our muscles and say, listen, this is now what you need to do, so on and so forth. And we need to be having that constant battle each and every day with stakeholders, whether it's clients, government, friends and family, so on and so forth, to ensure that they are encouraged to uptake the use of digital platforms and not just staying on Facebook. There's a business side of Facebook, not just the social. There's a business side of every single social media platform. You know what I mean? So these are the things that we need to be doing in order to go forward. Otherwise, we are never, with the literacy level where it's at right now, more developed countries, and not even more developed countries, but countries like Kenya, countries like Rwanda, they will leave us. I mean, they're already far ahead of us. They'll leave us a lot more, and we will be left playing catch up all the time. But we don't necessarily need to do that because we have a small population. We should be at the forefront, quite frankly, of these things. We should be uptaking every single new platform that is available out there. So that's what I believe is the step forward as an industry. The most important thing is really to work together. I mean, just the other week, I called two of the panelists here to find out a problem that was happening with social media. And I don't think they expected that. And I don't think the other panelists have done that with other digital players. So we need to make it a normalized thing, just sharing information with one another and trying to help each other. I know we are all in business and we all want to succeed in business. We all want to dominate the market, but that can also be done through collaboration. And yeah, that's what I believe.
Thank you. Kamo, what would you love to see happen with us as an industry?
Well, I think I'm pretty much in agreement with everything that Karabo has said, particularly on collaboration. In as much as we can call ourselves essentially competitors of one another, I think it's important to share information within our industry relating to market trends, results on, things that we have tried out that haven't succeeded, things that have succeeded within our industry. Because in as much as, yes, we can, go online and Google how to do certain things, we can study marketing, we can study digital marketing. I think it's such a thing that's very specific to every area within the world, right? And we need information and we need data and we need to be able to share that information so that, when we carry out other projects, we know what to look out for in terms of mistakes and we know which direction to go in so that the whole industry progresses as a whole. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on is in terms of digital literacy, one thing we need to also really invest in is digital trust. In as much as we can have all this infrastructure, all these e-platforms and content sharing platforms, it's about the adaptation of the people and whether they're actually willing to use the platforms. So I think a lot of people, especially the older generation, are a little bit hesitant to use digital platforms because they're like, I must enter my email address and my phone number and all of this and all of that. So they're quite hesitant to kind of adapt to technologies. So it's important that we teach them that, okay, this is safe and we should be sure that it's safe by also investing in things like cybersecurity. So in as much as these infrastructures come into play, we need to ensure that they are secure and they're safe before being launched to the people. So I think that's one important part. And I think because we do a lot of research within our industry, we're quite knowledgeable on things beyond digital marketing, just the whole tech space, the whole digital space. So I think it's good that we should share information. Whatever we find that's interesting, just share it on our personal social media platforms to kind of get people interested in what's happening and how they can contribute to the progression of the digital economy.
Thank you. Pretty much, I think we've touched on a lot of the stuff that we wanted to touch on. So I'll I think we'll give one final word to everyone to have like a closing statement that relate to what we've been discussing, starting with Tony.
Yeah, I believe we all know that the Africa Free Trade Agreement is coming into effect in the next financial year. So the most important thing is we need to ask ourselves as a country, are we ready to take advantage of that? And how ready are we to, with the backbone of the actual technology that we want to implement? You know, I always say the innovation or the technology is not the app, it's the infrastructure that you put behind the app to support the app. And as a person who's trying to delve into digital, into technology, you need to ask yourself, what am I doing to support the infrastructure that I want? Or what am I doing to propel my digital innovation to the next level? At the end of the day, as a country, we're still embracing digital. And we all have to collectively make an effort. It's not up to government, it's not really up to private sector, it's up to each and every individual where they sit. And I think in closing, I would like to challenge the guys that are watching us to tag decision makers, encourage them to watch this discussion and share it as much as possible so we can show the power of digital. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Lesero, final words?
Yeah, in closing, I'd like to encourage and urge all of us in the industry and the government to take a point from Kamogelo, talking about digital trust. Maybe benchmark or take a page from the digital transformations of other technologically advanced nations. For example, Estonia, being the most technologically advanced in the whole world, had or encountered the issue of having people to trust the fact that they had to share their information to online platforms and digital services, to realize the fact that it's not just give us what we need to know about you thing, but more how do we centralize information sharing and prioritize security at the same time to be able to deliver seamless digital services. And another thing, to maybe even benchmark off of what Rwanda has done. Something that really stuck out for me is the digital ID that they introduced about 4 years ago, to really be able to access everything with one password type like thing. Just enter who you are and everything there is available, with security being prioritized. I'd like us to also have a sense of accountability between both private and public sector to say this is what we expect of one another, but should we not be able to reach these set objectives, how do we move forward together, speaking more to the collaboration part of everything? That's what I'd like to see happening. I believe if we follow these avenues that Estonia and Rwanda have sort of paved the way with, we will get there. We will get there.
Great, thank you. Kamo, final words?
I think I'd like to first thank Socialite and Vibe Digital for this platform, because it's opened our eyes to a need for more dialogue and more conversations. You know, there's so much more that we need to discuss that we haven't discussed in this short session, and I think it'll help us kind of get ideas on how to move the industry forward. And I think, you know, we need to kind of collaborate not only with government and public sectors, but with one another to kind of move the industry forward, and also all take responsibility for the progression of the industry. You know, it's not only the government's responsibility to maybe fund certain projects. It's not only private sector's responsibility to take action. You know, it's everybody's responsibility. And I feel like if we all, have a common goal of an eventually digital economy, then we can get there.
Mike, final words.
Geez, after these guys have said so much, we all really need to adapt to this ever-changing landscape. And I'm not just talking from a digital point of view, but in life in general. I mean, every industry is evolving. 50 years ago, mining was not the same as it was now, slaughtering of chickens was done by hand 30 years ago. It's done by machine now. So we constantly need to adapt to the ever-changing landscape. Otherwise, hey man, things won't happen. And big thing that the guys talk about is collaborations. We need to collaborate, particularly as the industry. And the industry is vast. You have some what do I call them? Some job specs or professions overlapping into the digital spectrum. I mean, earlier on, I think Karabo spoke about an IT guy doing social media, but IT ultimately is part of digital. So we just constantly need to collaborate. Design, for instance, a designer designs posters, but in the same breath, they design stuff for online or digital, as we call it. So we constantly need to be collaborating from a holistic point of view for us to be able to achieve greatness and, assist government and educate the government, because we are meant to be, the professionals in the industry. We go to school, we, go and study digital or IT or, so we need to come back and bring those skills back home to, to help and see our country move forward.
Thanks, Mike. Final thoughts from Karabo?
I can't really say much because everything has been said, guys.
I know, right? Jeez.
Yeah. To me, there's two things. It's about collaboration and collaboration with the intent of improving the digital literacy of our country. I can't stress this enough. And once the literacy levels are improved, that's when we'll start seeing things like underpayments be a thing of the past, because people understand what exactly we're doing, so on and so forth. And we can start unlocking different opportunities that our industry offers, not just the digital marketing industry, but the digital economy. The government is doing its level best to improve the infrastructure. And yeah, we must commend them for doing that, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done, and things like unemployment can be really tackled if the digital literacy levels are improved. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't be having accountants being unemployed in Botswana. We can be exporting our accountancy services through digital platforms, coming up with accountancy software that is used in Europe or other developing nations, and that's driven through digital literacy, so there's so many different benefits that having a digitally literate population can do. And it's up to us to really encourage the population to improve its literacy skills when it comes down to the digital economy. So that's basically about it. And once again, thank you guys for setting aside times in your busy schedule, because I know y'all be making money, and sharing some of your knowledge and really inviting the public to kind of have an insight as to what exactly we go through on a day-to-day basis. So thank you guys for that.
All right, thank you. Before we part and all go home, I want to leave some thoughts with you guys, and everybody who's watching. I mean, something that's interesting, that I thought was very interesting, is that we've all sort of stressed collaboration, and in an ecosystem environment. And I actually said earlier in this webinar that, you know, the people that was primarily on this were digital marketers, and that's fine. And I challenge you guys to sort of step, to create the next step where we bring everybody else in, because the industry is very vast. You know, I'm in analytics, you know, there's guys in software development, there's infrastructure, you know, there's visualization, there's all of these other process engineering, you know, automation, AI, and we need a scenario where, as an industry, for us to collaborate, we need to know who's where, right? E-commerce, what other people are doing in e-commerce, and I challenge that at least here we've started that conversation, that, you know, we go off and, you know, create the next round of conversations where we bring other people in. Thankfully, on another platform that I'm involved with, I've had some loose commitment to saying they would be happy to sort of sponsor a gathering of the industry. And I think, you know, with your blessings, we need to take that up and just get everybody in all the different facets into a room, so that, you know, we could see, you know, we could work together. That's the first point. The second point is, you know, I find something that's really similar with transformation is the next big thing. Another big thing that's constantly being talked about in this country is the creative sector. And we've got something in common. We've got the fact that we're actually not organized as an industry. And right now, a whole transformation strategy that's going to be affecting us is being written, and we're not in the conversation. We're not actually adding our voices into that. And I checked this morning, I was talking to somebody at Business Botswana, or who's a member of Business Botswana, and they were saying they're not even aware if there's an ICT track at Business Botswana for companies in ICT at Business Botswana. And we have to realize that's where the government, that's who the government speaks to when it's looking for recommendations on how to do things. I've said this, the creative industry. You can't not want to be organized and involved, go to Business Botswana, and think that somebody will get recommended. Every recommendation, things that you see in the SONA, things that you see in all these policies come from people in their industry. So when you think those things are thin and they don't really have substance, it's because you are not there to put in the word. And I challenge, therefore, that everybody in the industry, we need to collectively get together. And then we need to go and register for Business Botswana and actually start a track so that our voices can actually be heard. I think those are effectively my final words. And I would also like to thank, I'd like to thank Karabo and Tony for putting this together, and for everybody who's taking time to not only be on this panel, but to also watch us and today. And just a challenge to everybody in this space to say, I think it's time we stood up so that we're able to take advantage of all the opportunities that are coming to us, and to take the responsibility to educate the people, the ecosystem around us. We need to educate our clients. We need to educate government. We need to educate the private sector on how to work with us, on what we do. And that's how this industry will grow. So I'd like to close off with that and say thank you very much. And hopefully we will see you guys soon again on another session like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.